All right. Okay. 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 Shall we? I think it's time. Oh man, I have a sinking suspicion. A sinking feeling, a sneaking suspicion, a sneaking feeling that I've forgotten something. But off my checklist of stuff to make sure is in order before starting this thing off. Oh man, hello everyone. How's it going? Oh, okay, I've got Austin almost ready to go here. John Wick Hex by Austin Wintory. Hey Luke, good to see ya. Today we got Billy, often William, often Billy Palmer. I can't recall which order your handle was. Billy Palmer Music. There it is. Has it changed? Maybe you changed your handle actually. And we got Geoff Lee Music also. And I don't know if Jack Cooper is here, but we have Jack Cooper as well. We're doing a three-fer. A three-fer this week. We're going to be blasting through. And you've updated. Okay, perfect. All right. Give me one hot second here. And we'll get started. So... yeah, we as I'm sure the three of you for sure if you're here. Has Jack yet revealed himself? I'm not sure. We shall see if Jack makes it in or not. Hopefully he makes it. M. Fisher Sound, hey all. First time catching this live. Same for David, holy. Welcome to you both. Glad you could make it for the first time live. It's real non-stop action here on Power of Audio's dev stream. All right, so here's the deal. This is real talk. We're gonna be looking at a few things, mostly music today. Typically, it's sound design. We're usually focused in the sound design space, games-wise, obviously, but we do occasionally get content, demo reels, websites from composers as well. Like people who are specifically focused in composition, as opposed to oftentimes we'll have somebody who is like, I want to do sound design and music, or music and sound design, or like some kind of ratio of the two. And but yeah, for music only, given that it's not what we usually focus on, I wanted to hold off. Basically, all three of them were very patient. Kind of had them in our back pocket, just waiting to find a good spot for them to slot in. So today we've got Austin Wintory, composer of a lot of stuff. I mean, he is on. Give me a second. Just on his page, he's got like a laundry list of titles. You know all of them basically. He's worked on Journey, Pathless, Abzu, Erica, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, John Wick Hex. We're listening to right now. He's working on Chorus right now with my good pal Liam Esler. He did the Banner Saga series. He did Tooth and Tail with us also, with Pocket Watch Games, a game we shipped a few years back. So I got to know him relatively well over that time, and I guess before that our paths crossed here and there as well. So, and also Austin was a guest host on the stream, maybe 2017 or 18. It's been a long time since he was last with us, and I'm stoked to have him back. It's going to be good. He kind of knows what he's doing, as it may seem. Surprisingly so. Okay, so let me go ahead and just get him on the line right away. Here we go. Let's just stop this first. And sorry, let's go and go. With any luck, it'll just work. With any luck.
Hello?
You make me nervous, man. Just let it ring. Oh,
Earn it.
how's it going? Oh, I have my sidechain on. Sorry, I'll stop stomping on your voice. There we go. Hey, man.
You're all good.
How are you today.
Can you hear me okay? I actually have the audio slightly different than I had it.
Yeah, it's great. Super good.
Okay, cool.
Super clear.
All right, great.
Okay, well, how are you this fine day, evening, 4 p.m.?
Not bad, man. It's been a daisy chain of calls the last few hours. So you're kind of my grand finale of being on Skype and or Zoom and or Teams and or whatever the hell for like 4.5 hours straight.
Well, and what a grand finale it may be.
I trust it will be.
It's gonna be
No
really
doubts. I always feel very confident in your hands.
Okay, well, that's very assuring. Thank you so much for that vote of confidence. Okay, well, you've been on Real Talk before. It's been a hot minute, but one thing that I do like to ask our various guest hosts who come on is how they may have gotten their start in their respective kind of corner of the industry, given that this is a stream all about people getting traction in what they want to be doing in music or sound or whatever.
Sure.
It's important to remember that everyone starts somewhere. So to hear people who are they're deep into it, they have a pretty established career at this point. It's good to know that there once was a time when you had not worked on anything yet for money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
it's funny how that time was about 15 years ago, but it feels like yesterday.
Oh yeah, really.
And it doesn't. I don't ever. I mean, I'm kind of pathologically opposed to the notion of resting on one's laurels or kind of relaxing one's ambition. Maybe is the right way to put it. I'm not entirely sure the best expression of that, but essentially becoming complacent in your creative process or your professionalism or whatever is just something that I have no interest in. And the result of which is that you don't ever really internalize the feeling of having, quote, made it. I don't really know by what metric I would evaluate that. I just always feel like for the folks that we'll be looking at here today, I don't actually feel that different from them. I just started on the road earlier, probably. But these are non-linear trajectories, careers go all over the place. And sometimes people have a continuous kind of slow build. Sometimes it's just outrageous zigzag of highs and lows of, quiet periods and then busy as all hell periods and all that kind of thing. So
sure, like someone who's new to the industry, doing a project for money for the first time, this is new territory for them. But as just before the call, for everyone in the chat, I was talking to Austin Israel briefly on a test call, and I was saying, hey, I'm putting John Wick Hex on, do you mind? And he kind of cracked up. He's like, yeah, it's like that was very new territory for me. It's kind of funny you choose that one of all the soundtracks I've done. It's not kind of what you're known for, but it sounds like you're saying that kind of new territory is something to be aspiring for.
Yeah, I like to always kind of put myself in compromising situations that I have to sort of creative my way out of. Like in The Martian, where he says, I'm going to science the shit out of this. It's like I'm going to music the shit out of this situation, but I don't actually know for sure if it will work or if I won't die and asphyxiate. Yeah.
So do you find in school, I got some advice a long time ago, back in 11 years ago or something. I got some advice that was, if you think you can do it, tell them you can absolutely do it, and then sweat later when they can't see your face.
I think you can one up that, and it's like whether or not you think you can do it, just I can do that, and then especially early, because the truth is 99% of your situations will be ones where you don't actually really know because it will be totally new. Like the first time you have to deliver an interactive score, or the first time you are recording an orchestra, or the first time you're doing ambisonic sound, or the first time. There's a million firsts. And especially with the way technology is always changing, there's a steady diet of firsts even for the very busy and the very kind of established or whatever composers. And so, just learning to embrace the kind of Evel Knievel of that and going, well, I'm sure I can do it. And, once I'm airborne, that's when I'll start planning my landing.
I'm sure it'll all work out, eh?
I mean, I had never done, you go all the way back to Journey, which in many ways was kind of the major turning point for me, not surprisingly professionally. And it opened up a lot of doors. there was huge swaths that I kind of pitched was the plan, but I couldn't prove that I could do it. Even to myself, it was like conceptually this makes sense. Let's try this. But there's definitely some alternate universe where at the end of that road was sort of calamitous failure. I couldn't promise with this true like maximum certainty that would be the case. It just seemed like I was just very convinced it would work. And I should say in the broadest sense, because I don't want to make it sound like there wasn't ample sums of self-doubt at every step of the way. And that also is, I still deal with on every project every day.
I think it's just the meaning of being an artist.
Yeah. And so that's why the whole notion of being established versus kind of just getting started and whatever the spectrum exists between those, I don't actually feel that removed from the early days.
Well, perhaps is it fresh in memory then, as far as what your first gig was?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it kind of depends on what you define. I mean, my first professionally shipped real game was that game company's debut title, Flow. Because prior to that, we did the student version, which was Genova Chen's master's thesis at USC, and Flow. So in my mind, Flow, the Flash game version, the browser title, that was like my first real game, insofar as a lot of what I figured out on that is I just did all over again when because the PS3 version of Flow was basically 20% a port and then 80% new content based on that port. So it was kind of like, we'll remake your little experiment, but make it 5 times larger. With like a real team and for a real console. But it feels somehow dismissive to ignore the student version, since, I had no idea. I'd never done electronic music. I had never done interactive music of any sort. I was major trial by fire. So I consider that, which was, that was in the like late winter, I think, of 2000. Somewhere in 2005, I believe, is when I connected with Genova, and we finished it in 2006. And we were shortly thereafter contacted by Sony. And the better part of a year later, we shipped the PS3 version just after the launch of the PS3 in around, I think it was March or April, March, I'm almost certain, of 2007. So it's kind of like, which one of those you want to peg as the start? I don't really. They all kind of have a separate and maybe equal case as to what would make them the beginning. But in round terms, it was Flow, and however.
Yeah, just tangentially. It's not so tangentially. We actually had Vincent Diamante on the stream as a guest host less than a month ago. So getting a lot of that game company time on the stream recently.
Yeah, he and I have a kind of leapfrogging thing of he did Cloud, which is Genova's big student project prior to Flow, and then I did Flow, and then he did Flower, and then I did Journey, and then he did Sky, and I have no idea what that game company will be doing next, and therefore I don't know if it will be him or me or someone else.
I think it just has to be you, actually, given the pattern of history. So I guess we'll look forward to your.
that would be the historic precedent, but it has to be whoever Genova decides it has to be. He's his own guy.
Well, I guess we might as well start blasting away. Oh, he's in this chat right there. Sclat. Is it Sclat Hill or Sclat Hill? I never know, man. That is Vincent in the chat right there. There you go. So, hey, man. Good to see you.
Fantastic. Well, all love to Vince.
Okay, so for anyone new in the stream, either here for the first time or here, first time having never seen us before or first time seeing us live, welcome on in. Thank you for being here. We're doing Real Talk. We're looking at some demo reel content from Billy Palmer, Jack Cooper, and Geoff Lee today. We are looking at a few things that are just down here right now. We're looking at presentation and material selection, content quality, and distinction. So for presentation, we're looking at the website on the whole, the demo reel content, kind of how we flow through their demo materials, like what the natural flow might be, what the length of the reel looks like, the titling, if there's too much information, not enough, just general taste stuff, that kind of thing. For material selection, we're saying what is in your demo reel, what's in your portfolio content, and what might those materials suggest about your past work history, your current skill sets, and perhaps most importantly, your future ambitions. And content quality, simply, is it good? I may throw it over to Austin for that one today. I feel that Austin is perhaps a better judge of, of music.
Oh, no, I mean, if you want my honest, like, philosophic answer to that, I think if we both weigh in and then 10 more people weigh in and then 20 more people weigh in, then we start to approach figuring out if it's good. But I will offer one person's opinion.
That's all we can offer.
Yep.
Perfect. So we'll offer a total of 2 persons' opinions. And of course, there's a bunch of people in the chat right now. And as always, I'm sure they'd be happy to give their own opinions as well. It's a very constructively positive environment we're in. And I know we've had some folks here in the past who are like, I'm so nervous. And it's really not about that. We're not looking to have you like competing. It's not a contest. There's no luck involved. It simply is like, what is in front of us and what do we think and what might be a positive way forward. So last thing being distinction, are you standing out? And it's just real damn important to be standing out in some positive way, because there are so many people vying for those gigs, and there's only so many gigs to go around. There is a lot of work, mind you. There's a whole lot of work out there. But there's also a whole lot of people looking for the work. So you got to stand out in some respect. Even if you aren't hired this time around, perhaps you could be referred by that same person to a peer of theirs in the industry, or hired for the next gig, or whatever.
You mind if I tag a little point on the back of that?
I wish you would tag something on all my points for the entire stream. Let's do it.
Well, I don't want to just keep getting
tagging,
involved in your in your business. But something that took me a long time to really internalize, that I think is hopefully valuable to hear, and anyone listening and our 3 folks today also can kind of if they don't believe it yet, they'll hopefully eventually believe it. But to your point of there's a lot of work to go around, but there's not technically infinite work to go around. There will be people who are hired and those who are not. Mm-hmm. And probably those who are not will outnumber those who are. It's really easy to fall into the trap of thinking, I like that job, I lost that job, as opposed to X person got that job. And to see it as your loss instead of their gain. Even if you actively fought for it, you demoed for it, you had meetings, you looked at design docs, and you were like right there. They're not, the developer and or publisher or whomever the decision makers are, they're not looking at you and saying no as much as they are looking at the other person and saying yes. And so, yes, it's a form of rejection just in pragmatic terms, but I find it took me a long time to sort of absorb the thinking that it's not this zero-sum thing of them looking and sort of saying no in such a cut and dry, black and white kind of way. They are not looking for reasons to say no so much as they're looking for the person to say yes. Now, there's a million nuances to this that I'm leaving out, and that, like, you could easily sort of dismantle some of these points, and I would be right there with you. I don't want to drag out a small point. I just think it's important to remember on that subject of distinctiveness, all the more important because of what I'm saying. And like you have to stand out because in the end, that is going to be one of the biggest reasons why whoever gets the job gets the job. It's not that they don't like you. It's that they like this other person. So how can we help you be the person that they like? It's not avoiding being the one they dislike, in other words.
Yes. No, I fully agree with that. And one thing that comes up very often, and really, like, if we just had the answer to everyone getting work, we just make this single YouTube video and be like, and we're done, and we never have to stream again. But, like, of course, it's a very person-to-person kind of thing, and this is a personal industry. Like, you're working with individuals. Austin just finished saying he's been on calls all day. Like, it's a very common thing for people in a freelance position to be in. So I've said again and again on the stream, and I know that a lot of my peers and friends around the industry agree that in general, for any kind of job, if you're applying for a job as a composer for a video game, or if you're applying to be like a line cook at White Spot, like, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Applying for a job represents saying, "Hey, I am the best choice because I am the least risk to your needs," whether that's making a burger or making a game score. So the point being that this person has needs, this employer has needs that need filling, and if those needs are filled in a very streamlined and positive way, that means it was the least risk person to go with, very likely. Whereas if you go with somebody who's like never done a game before, or perhaps like has written some cool music, but it's maybe not a perfect fit, but they're telling you like, oh, but I can do it. That's also a little bit of risk. You're like, can they? Well, I guess we're gonna find out. Or if they're being like a little bit weird in communication, or if their site like kind of looks strange, or if they've like, there's all these little small nuanced things that might lead somebody to feeling like there is some amount of risk there. So I'm a very logically driven person. Every choice in my entire life is basically driven by like, does this make sense? And the thing about like all the choices made in the effort of getting a gig, I'm just looking at every detail thinking, well, does this represent a removal of risk from the perspective of a prospective client? And if it does, then I'm like, that's a positive thing. But it's a very kind of clinical way of looking at it. And I'm sure there's a lot of...
It's a good way, though. It's an accurate... My agent has a little catchphrase that I steal all the time.
Oh, yeah?
And will do so now.
Please.
Which is you want... It's kind of the touchy-feely version of what you just said, though. It's you should aspire to be the solution to the problems that they don't yet know they have.
Nice.
And if you can kind of be there to sort of be the person that's then swooping in to help them fulfill those needs, that is ultimately what will validate that you were in fact the right person to hire. And if they intuit that about you in advance, then that can be the reason why you got the job.
There you go.
Even if they would probably never frame it in those terms, but that's kind of what's operating subconsciously.
Okay. What's plenty about the preamble. Let's move on, shall we? From both you and myself, I'm talking too much. Okay, let's
Yes, sir.
Let's move on to who do you want to hit first here? I think we're gonna put Jack maybe last because I haven't seen Jack in the chat yet, so I'm hoping he can make it in. If you are in the chat, Jack, please make yourself known so we know who to talk to if we have questions and stuff. But
well, I have all three here, so you tell me.
let's. I saw Billy Palmer music in the chat first, so let's go with Billy's stuff. Also, by the way, Geoff Lee, real quick, I loved how your image didn't change size when I changed zoom levels. Nice work. Okay, Billy Palmer. So Billy used to be under Billy Often William Palmer and has since rebranded just Billy Palmer Music. That's perhaps, I don't know, it's maybe a good choice. I'm curious of your line of thinking there, Billy, because I've known you as Billy Often William for a long time. So I'd be curious to hear kind of your motivation there. To be less confusing, sure. Okay, let's go with...
People were confused by that? I feel like but it's funny.
Billy Often William?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's I don't know, interesting. I mean, go with the gut. But...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you'd be fine either way, honestly. If this feels better to you, then there you go. If it does feel better, you're probably going to be more comfortable, presenting yourself as such. So it probably is a positive step. Okay, so we got this. We got the showcase page. This is a pretty vertical page-ish. So we have the reel up top. We got a composer for games, Billy Palmer, and Twitter account, links to the right place. Nice work. And... we've got, it doesn't happen sometimes, just links to like twitter.com. Okay, yeah. Billy Palmer is Google. A composer. Yeah, it's a Google, exactly. Gmail just linked to my Gmail one time, like the mail to link. I was like, ooh, nice. I probably shouldn't show my email inbox. Okay, Billy Palmer is a composer. Is this a formatting thing? No, it's not. It's a weird enter just on the is. Billy Palmer is a composer for games from London. Billy excels in bringing a unique ingredient to each production from live performers and orchestral color.
Can I interject with a grammar comment that I normally wouldn't be the guy to make? But
do it.
I'm pretty sure that if my childhood grammar education is correct, this is a subtly misplaced modifier because it sounds like Billy Palmer is a composer for games from London.
Oh, I see. Yes, only for games from London.
I'm pretty sure it should be Billy Palmer is a composer from London for games. But that's me being way overly annoying right out of the gate here.
It's all right.
I saw that and I found myself going, that's an awfully niche thing to specialize in London games. I mean, there's a lot of games in London, to be fair. But
no, sure, that dangling modifier, it'll get you.
Yeah.
Okay, so carrying on, we got from live performers, orchestral color to improvisation and bespoke sampling. In 2018, Billy was intern composer in-house at Octopus 8 Studios, where he gained experience in adaptive music and audio integration. Since 2019, Billy has been freelancing in game audio, and I saw this before I began reading this. You can Billy on Twitter. That's probably a reach Billy, and you just perhaps missed a word there. You can Billy on Twitter or get in touch with him at billyparmusic@gmail.com. There's a mail too, and the Twitter link is the same link. Cool. So yeah, fix that, man, and fix your dangly modifiers.
I do like, as a little side note, because I get a lot of people sending sites, asking if if there's like assistant work there, maybe that could be useful or something like that. And so I end up looking at a lot of composers' websites, and I've always found that I personally, again, I'll just preface once more, this is just me. I don't even know if my friends or colleague composer types would even agree with this, but
sure.
I like the fact that the email address is just there.
Yeah,
because I've always thought that filling out a form, like, it's one thing if I'm on, like ubisoft.com. Okay, I get it. There's a form. It goes into some server. But like I don't even have, like, I get a fair amount of email traffic, and I put my email on my site directly because I don't think it should be a challenge to look for it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm a fan of having the direct contact info.
Cool.
Did I just see your power up form in defiance of what I'm saying?
Yes, it's fine. But we're a big company like Ubisoft. It's the same thing, right? It goes into it has to go to our HR first. Well, first to the interns, then to the HR, and then to
I guess the reason why is I don't feel like I have as much confidence that the email will actually reach them if I'm filling out a form. There's this certain...
Yeah, I hear you, sure.
I have this small part of me that's going, is there some bug in their website that's like blocking the pathway here? So it's just a small little thing, a little kind of +1 for me, because I've looked at a lot of sites, and that's usually one of the things I bring up.
I know one thing too is that people like having the email address up so they can just like select, I can't select it, what the heck? But select just like copy paste it as opposed to having to like go through mail too. Because if I click this link, it's gonna go to like my Outlook, and I don't use Outlook at all, so yeah, it's fine.
Yep.
Anyways, okay, so some testimonials here. Working with Billy's been a pleasure at Antler Studios, cool, and also some links to those pages. Wonderful, good stuff. Terrific job transcribing my scores for Last Stop. How nice, good job, man. And some various things. Project Grove, Last Stop, Alchemist's Compendium, Bloodborne, Music Rescore. And Just Audio. Oh, was that what I saw at the top? Just Audio. Okay, I was confused by the showcase and Just Audio at the top. I was planning to come back to it. I guess...
Yeah, that is a little unintuitive.
It's probably... This top thing at the top is probably superfluous. Like, I don't think you need to have the showcase and Just Audio. If I were to scroll from the top to the bottom, you don't have a whole lot of content here, Billy. That's not like a put down. I'm just saying that it seems like a pretty decent amount of content as far as what things to look at, but I don't think it necessitates like additional links at the top. Because the thing is, it's like at the very, very top. So it's what I saw first, and I assume Just Audio was like a separate page, perhaps like sound effects work compared to your music on the front page. Just sort of my internalization of that, anyways. Okay.
Or it could just be as simple as like watch stuff here and listen here, like so that it's.
Yeah, I mean,
showcase and audio are not a dichotomy, so it feels funny. I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm curious too, like, if the Just Audio is not, if it's the same things you've got otherwise, but just audio, like the Project Grove EGX trailer I see here, and we have the video here, Project Grove. I guess we'll find out if those are the same things or not. If they are the same thing, then I don't know if you need that, but I guess we can talk about that afterwards. Do you want to watch the reel here, Austin?
Sure. Yeah, okay. As I tend to, as my kind of thing, I'll go to whatever has the path of least resistance to listen to or watch, because if you have a random producer or a random game developer, they most likely are not going to go hunting around on your site. So as a rule, I will always say I only listened or watched one thing, and it was the thing that you led me to. And if that's not the thing you want me to see, then redesign it. And I'm guessing that Billy, often William, now Billy, is very much wanting us to watch this, because we don't even get to know. It's like, watch this, then later ask if Billy is a composer of games from London. You know, like it's they're hierarchically placed in a way that is just begging us to watch this. So I'd say we indulge that.
And as a very quick aside, we actually had a submission. So Power Up had a submission, just like a DM on Twitter, as most people hit us up. And it was just one track on SoundCloud. I think the person was maybe pointed our way and had not like looked into like what Real Talk kind of was all about. And we don't really do like, review my track kind of thing. That's not really what the stream's about. It's more like in the effort of reviewing like what the primary piece in a job application might look like for a person. So I just let them know. I was like, this isn't really appropriate for the stream. We usually do like, we look at a person's full demo and then see what conclusions we can draw from that with that person and like their hireability and such. And then they followed up and sent me a SoundCloud like playlist instead. And I'm like, it's still kind of, it still isn't quite
incrementally better.
It's in the right direction for sure. And of course I was just very positive. I was like, so this is going in the right direction. It's still not quite where it could be. And I brought up the exact thing you just said, Austin, just that when you just have like a playlist of stuff, it's almost like the stuff, like the 12 tracks, the first one's really the only one that matters oftentimes, because you have a person who's in charge of recruiting, if it's at a third-party studio like ours, or like a big AAA company, or an indie house, or whatever, and they have their hundreds of applications. It's like, well, you can't listen to someone's entire portfolio. It just doesn't really. It's not feasible. So okay.
No,
anyways.
In fact, you could say that the only reason to listen to the second track is if the first one blows you away.
Yeah.
So like, it is in fact the only one that matters. It's the gatekeeper to all the rest.
There you go. Okay, let's go ahead and watch this thing. I'm going to press play. I'm just going to go full stream, make sure my volume's up everywhere. I think it is. Awesome. We got a minute and 23. Nice. Okay. Ready, Austin?
Yep.
Okay, let's go. 3, 2, 1, and go. All right.
Cool.
Thanks, Billy. Okay, before we dive into anything crazy detailed here, just any first impressions? Like maybe a couple sentences kind of thing?
Yeah, I liked, just from a presentation standpoint, I'll get into the music in a sec, but just from a presentation standpoint, that first, maybe 10 seconds of just kind of like, it almost felt like a behind the scenes on Billy. That was cool. I don't see that very often.
Agreed.
And normally when I have, it's really cheesy. And it feels kind of like you're sort of overhyping. It's like, from the Oscar presumed winner in some future date. Like the one variant of that, as a side note, that I heard once, which I cannot remember who it was, but they referred to themselves as the awards pending composer, which I thought was actually pretty funny. But yeah, I liked that presentation. I liked I don't know, it was charming to me seeing the like sheet music, and I also liked the split second of conducting to the camera, even though I thought the framing of the shot was I would reshoot that so that it's not 90% headspace. But yeah, as a thing that maybe it's because as a composer, maybe I'm sympathetic to that. Again, show it to folks. But I did like that. That charmed me. It made me all the more interested to hear what was to come.
100%, me too. It's really, like we were saying, the whole distinction thing. I think that right away Billy's standing out in some positive way, and it's almost like unless the music was like just really clearly not quite there yet in terms of like maturity as a composer. If it was bad enough to like distract you, then this kind of thing wouldn't matter. Like the split second conductor intro and such, and the split second like clips of the strings and the vocalist and stuff, super cool. I just don't see that. This doesn't happen very often. Like on the sound design side of things, people put in little intermingled clips or pictures of themselves like breaking this cinder block or something like that with a sledgehammer for this sound effect. And it's cool, and it's happened so rarely. And this was actually also done very nicely in terms of flow. Like I didn't feel you were like yanking me out of the trailer to show me this singer and then back into the action again. So cool. All right, so the chat is all claps. They're into it. Lord Thayer loves the ending contrabass sting. There you go. Okay, well, I guess in terms of like presentation stuff, we can do that first. Just go on the list really quick. So presentation-wise, Billy Palmer, intro, looks good. Composing, all these little clips, looks good. And then the headspace thing was definitely a consideration for me too. I was like, that's a lot of wall. But
it's
cool.
How I always look on webcams. Like I always manage to screw up the placement of it, so it's like it's just all wall.
All right, so flow-wise and like length-wise and stuff, do you feel like you got enough out of this to get an idea of what Billy's all about?
To be honest, I don't think so, because I felt like the length of the excerpts were good. No particular segment of it was overstaying its welcome. I don't believe. However, I felt like, I mean, if I went through it again, I might slightly revise this, but most of the material sounded like interstitial material. And for a composition demo, think of this as a trailer for you. And trailers are they sell by overselling. And this is always a constant dilemma when demoing for a project, for example, where you're kind of demoing for the most over-the-top rendition of it in a way, because you have to wow them, even if the actual score that you are pitching will invariably be sort of reeled back in and tempered a bit in practice, in the game, in the deliverables, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that that's a very important lesson with any kind of showcase, especially if someone has no benchmark for comparison. Like I recognize that there's a lot of folks that hire me because they played Journey or they played some other thing. And so I have a built-in goodwill that they already know at least one thing. And so even though I'm often still asked to demo, like, the prior projects don't relieve me of the demo. They are what get me invited into the room to demo. Mm-hmm. And the demo, I still have to do all these same things that I'm advocating here. I have to kind of do a dog and pony show, and I've gone to extreme lengths many, many times to that end. And we can tangent into that sort of stuff if you want later. But just so to that point, I felt like the more succinct way to say it was that they all felt kind of understated and sort of subtle, and I wanted to be smacked around the face. Mm-hmm. And the only other thing I'll tag on to that, because I don't want to yammer on forever, but it is one of the things that excited me is at the beginning, and on your bio, it talks about combining live performers and orchestras and all that. And then the first thing you show us are, like I remember seeing like a cellist and a bass and violin, two cellists, violin, and I felt like almost everything I heard was samples other than the singer and I think maybe that one brief cello tremolo. And so I would actually rather hear one piece that represents the full scope of production that you can bring to the table. Because by showing me those live performers and then playing samples for me, you've actually set yourself up to be disappointing. You know what I mean? Like, if I had never seen those performers in your little intro, I wouldn't have immediately been listening for them and been kind of thrown off by hearing sample production.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps it's a bit of a risk assumed by having that intro.
Yeah, well, I would just say, what were those pieces? What were they recording? Let me hear that. It's very that excites me. So hit me with, like, here's a way to put it. I imagine you've said some variation of this on here a million times, but if you ever find yourself saying, ooh, go to 30 seconds, that's the best part of the track, then for God's sake, start at the 30-second mark. Don't make me have to earn it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, show your hottest stuff first, absolutely. Okay, I want to just glance at some other things he has here. I want to try and wrap up on his stuff in like 5 minutes-ish. So just we have 2 more to go, maybe like 20 minutes each kind of thing would be good.
Sure.
Do you have, before we do that though, do you have any comments on, I guess, beyond the... well, no, first we'll reel it back. So just demo material-wise, what do you think about like his selection of what he showed? Like, do you think it's clear what he wants to work on?
Yeah, I think especially owning... Like, I go back and forth over the years about the idea of kind of doing rescores of existing stuff that you didn't work on. Mm-hmm. We had to do that in school. They would give us a scene from whatever the latest movie was or whatever, and as a class, we'd all rescore it and compare. And so I'm very familiar with that. I very much associate it, therefore, with the student time period of one's career. Mm-hmm. And so I was always of the mind that I was trying to not look like a student. And so scoring stuff that I didn't actually score screamed student. So I would never have put that on my website. But I also recognize that, like, those are $1 million visuals, and we are visual animals, and so you can't help but kind of perk up and go, ooh, that's interesting. Like, mm-hmm. I played Hellblade or whatever, you know what I mean? And so, of course, that also comes with its own risk, because if you're not able to rise to the production value of the stuff you're throwing up against, you're actually going to look worse than the piece would if it was just against a black screen. Yes. And so that's. And I would say I actually felt a little bit of that.
We actually had one person who their main piece was a rescore of Journey, and I was like, well, there was a Grammy nomination. Not to butter you up too much, Austin, but it's what you're saying. I was like, you realize what you're going up against. It was a lovely piece of music, but we're like, unfortunately, just the fact that you chose this backdrop is a problem.
You set yourself up for a challenge. I remember when we were in school normally we were assigned clips, but for our final project, we were allowed to choose any scene from any movie we wanted and rescore it. And so I kind of cheated. I went and got a student short film, and I just said, I'm just going to score your film as my assignment, because then I got the school to basically hire musicians for that. And that ended up working out pretty well. But a friend of mine, I remember at the time, he got a scene from one of the Bond films. And I was like, sure. Why would you do that? Because first off, you're setting yourself up in the same way that we're talking about, like, but you're not just setting yourself up. This is like some of the most iconic music ever. Mm. And on top of that, it's so stylistically specific that unless you're like demoing for a Bond film, what good does this aesthetic do you for your reel? It's like, unless someone is literally doing a Bond thing or a Bond parody, This is probably awfully specific. Like, and of course that is, the Bond thing is kind of a unique one in that way, because that's not even like a genre. It really is like an IP. So anyway, yeah, I would advocate swinging harder and really going for what's the big anthemic it sounds very reductive and kind of lowest common denominator, right? Like, just hit me with the big stuff. And that doesn't have to mean loud, by the way. Like Journey, for example, is not loud by and large. It's basically quiet the entire time. And like, but it fully commits to what it is. It's not subtle, I guess. So that I don't want to make it sound like this sucked. By the way, I hope it's this is all being absorbed in the
we're talking
spirit
nuance for sure. Absolutely. I mean, it happened as well. It's happened many times in real talk where folks redesign lightsabers, and we're like, man. And I think every single time it's been done, it has been unfortunately like it's not quite there, you know. And it's not because it was like just bad. It wasn't objectively bad. It just wasn't the lightsaber sound, you know. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of the redesign thing, one thing is it often demonstrates like what kind of gigs you want to be working on. If you're redesigning Bloodborne, it's assumable that like if your game looks like Bloodborne, then Billy wants to work on that game, you know. But yes, it is you're fighting against the whole thing. Like, oh well, you're showing this because you haven't worked on things yet, so. It is definitely a hurdle to overcome, and I don't envy anyone doing it, but it's kind of often just the case. You just have to deal with it until you have things of your own you can show.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I say I kind of go back and forth on it, because I am sympathetic to the idea that if you have great music that is very compatible with Bloodborne, say, then I guess go for it. And actually, if I can respond here. To this comment in the chat, it's a perfect kind of thing to just latch onto there before I shut up again. Of how does a composer create a visual demo? I would argue that then just don't. Like I for what it's worth, I don't think I've ever once in my career been hired for something on the basis of a visual demo, except for when they have sent me like a video file and said, please put music to this and send it back. I don't think I've ever once been contacted to say, we listened to your music, but we'd really like to see it with visuals. Can you send us a sample of your work done visually or in a, on a YouTube?
Yeah, I think that's one point that often goes back and forth between who we're talking to, because, it's the arguable points like, oh, well, visuals are they're more like engrossing. You're sucked into the thing, and it's also communicating information of like what kind of things you want to work on. It's like doing more than just the music by itself, but also everything you said. So it's kind of there's no definitive answer. Oh, geez, Billy, you misspelled demonstration twice. You have demonstration and demonstration and demonstration.
Demonstration seems like it's a real word that no one knows. That's one of those esoteric word of the day words.
It's like
demonstration.
It's like a new action hero. Now starring demonstration.
Vince in the chat also has a great suggestion of just stick with videos of the performers performing the music, and that's not a bad thought. Also, from the standpoint that it's just a fact of life that if someone's looking to hire you and they see value, they recognize that. Those musicians, it took money to produce this. There's a minimum floor that it requires to be able to pull this off. And knowing that you are at or above that floor already can potentially set you apart just from that.
Question for the chat. Is Jack Cooper here yet? If not, I might just bump him to another day and then just focus on Geoff Lee next. We can give Geoff Lee like a bunch of time. If like Geoff and Billy are here, I'm kind of inclined to do that instead, since we have 3 anyways. But so Jack, let me know like the next 5-10 if you're here, and if not, we'll just I'll let you know, and we'll hit you up instead. Okay, I do want to look at Billy's Fmod thing really fast here, the Alchemist's Compendium Music Sound Fmod, because that is interesting in terms of like it's an interactive medium. Here's music, so I'm gonna go ahead and play this, just the first little bit of it here. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Billy, and I'm going to be showcasing a bit of the Fmod system that I created for the game.
Oh, those transitions.
Alchemist's Compendium.
Holy.
The entire game's music is controlled by in-game parameters based on the player's time and location. For this demo, we're going to be controlling these things in real time. The cue you're hearing now is synced with the in-game sunset. This outside-inside parameter cues a little vertical remix and adds some subtle salpont viola now that the player is stood outside of the alchemy lab. Night music begins. The sun has now set. It's dark outside. Listen out for the viola tremolos. The outside-inside parameter again triggers a vertical remix as we step back inside the warmth of the alchemy lab. Muted harp accompanies the crackle of the fire. The if stairs parameter simply means that the player has climbed upstairs. The sleep parameter triggers a horizontal resequence to a new short piece of music titled Bed. Thank you very much for watching this, little showcase of the music system, and good night. Little showcase of the music system.
I didn't expect to watch the whole
in.
thing. It's nice and cozy. Oh, nice. Some claps for Billy for that one. Nice job, man.
Yeah, I liked that. I liked that a lot. And the only thing that I would suggest for potentially improving that is if you had a little picture-in-picture of gameplay so I could see precisely what it would be from the player's point of view, just video capture in like a little, just a little in the corner, not stealing the show from FMod. It's nice to see how you've set it all up. It's nice and clean. But just especially for a game developer that delegates this stuff and might think it's cool, but don't actually, live in FMod and don't know how it works. They rely on their Kevin to solve those problems. It would give them like a touchstone to kind of understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was a fun project. Tooth and Tail had a lot of this going on, a lot of transition stuff. Holy, a lot of problems to solve. Also, like edge cases are fun too. It's like, if these things happen in this one situation, now your entire structure breaks down. You have to do it all over again. I want to see. There's so many transitions here, man. Was there like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like 13 transitions? That's nuts. It can get pretty hairy in FMod sometimes, and I love seeing this kind of thing because it's just, every time you add one of these things, the complexity just goes up even more. We had one game we did called OKKO Let's Play Heroes. We did that with Dose 1. And I worked with him. I was like heading up the FMod side of things for that project. And we had every single song in the game was on one event. And as you transition from place to place, the tune would go into the new one. So like the screen would go back up, and it would always just go into the next track. And that
was an incredibly good little record warp
Thanks,
sound
buddy.
you just did there, man.
Yeah,
that was the real deal.
Sound designer,
Sound
so I love seeing this kind of thing. It's very cool as far as like being very okay with digging in deep. So nice work, man. Also, commentary is so good compared to having text there. I mean, can you imagine how boring that would be with the text there instead? It's great. And I mean, you speak clearly, and you clearly are like, you're interested to share what you've worked on. It comes through in a big way. So good job, man. I'm definitely sold. I think I can probably move on to Geoff pretty quick here, but I guess just, do you have any final thoughts on just, I know you mentioned samples and stuff like that, Austin, but as far as content goes, regardless of like, I know he wasn't showing the big bombastic stuff and, doing the kind of overselling, as you mentioned, but do you feel like this was good, quote unquote?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I already spoke to the things that felt like very actionable improvements. The challenge is always when I don't know what to say, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm just not excited.
Yeah.
This felt like, oh no, this is all solid. Just do a few of these things and see if they work for you, and if you like those improvements, and then off you go.
I think in sound design terms, oftentimes we'll see reels that are kind of the parallel here is where it's just kind of an absence of range in terms of showing like, here's like what a subtle UI moment sounds like, and here's what like a car chase with explosions sounds like. And when you have both those things, it kind of sells this idea like, yeah, I can accommodate for telling a story, both the ups and the downs, right? Like the highs and the lows. And this is kind of like mostly like mids to lows, like it's all there. So I just don't have a good idea right now, Billy, of like what your like big ass segment sounds like, and that might be a good thing to establish early.
I'll just qualify that. I guess what I meant is it doesn't have to be big, bombastic, literally loud music. It's just like music that feels fully committed to itself. And this felt like it was building somewhere, and then the somewhere never came in time before we moved on to the next thing. So they were all viable sort of intros to my instincts. But I don't want the intro. I want the meat, I'm skipping the salad and I'm going straight for the steak.
There you go.
So yeah.
I guess the last question then: do you think that Billy, in his current state, with his current like reel and the website and everything, do you think Billy's standing out in a positive way, even if you wouldn't hire him right now?
Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, my perspective on this is like very colored by being in essentially the same boat as Billy. And so it's hard for me to know, but there's nothing on here that is like this massive liability that is holding Billy back. The only thing to potentially think about is that I get that the showcase video, the kind of general reel, is the thing you just very much want to lead with, but it also makes your site, it's like a Vimeo page there's no kind of flair. It comes off very understated, which ironically, now that I say that, it's kind of matching the music. So maybe this is all very much by design and we've fallen right into Billy's trap here. But yeah, I think if there's one thing that I would say I could use a strong dose more of, it's this sense of like ravenous excitement that I'm here. Like me, prospective hiring entity is like, without projecting anything remotely approaching arrogance, I would love if it felt like Billy was saying to me, you'd be insane not to email me right now.
All right.
And now that's a very amorphous concept, like I don't know how to communicate that. But there is a certain dispassionate nature to how everything is set up. It's very kind of, maybe a way to put it is, in a way, it's almost corporate. It's kind of, but it's not actually. So don't over internalize that comment. But there is a certain sanitary nature, and I'd like, I get excited by the crazy people that are just like, just try and hold me down, But that's me. I don't.
Right, you're not in the shoes. You're not in the shoes of the recruiter. You were just
exactly that. Yeah. That could easily be, everything I just said could easily be the turn off that single-handedly loses the opportunity. But that said, my number one piece of advice always is embrace being divisive, because you will turn on someone instantly by making a bold choice just as much as you'll turn somebody off. And if everybody is kind of lukewarm, positive-ish, it's actually considerably harder. Sure.
Anything is better than boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to say you're boring, Billy. That was not what my conclusion was there.
No, but you can move further away from like the boring end of the spectrum and
definitely.
and not be off-putting, I think.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't have any further thoughts for the time being, Billy. But I know you've been watching the show for a long time, so thanks a lot for submitting. It's really cool when we have like long-time viewers sending their stuff in, get to hear your stuff finally. So cheers. Thanks, man.
Yeah, and another just +1 on that. The Fmod thing, what I love about that is that says I'm not just a composer who will do games and films and television and TV commercials and whatever just will pay. That says, like, I love games specifically, that I will learn skills proprietary to games. And that speaks volumes.
Yeah, huge. I love this so much, the Fmod thing. Really cool. Ali, look, listen. It's been a while, pal. How you going? Okay, closing that one. Geoff Lee, composer. I think at this point I'm keen to commit to just bumping Jack to a later date.
Ali, like, for lack of a better way to put it, my Ali.
Your alley?
I love alley, but
Okay,
isn't
there
it
you
that like it's like freaking 3 a.m, isn't it? I guess maybe there's a nearby crying infant that is keeping our dear Ollie awake.
All right. Well, Geoff Lee.
I'm solely standing by.
This is a
calling him
different
my
Lee.
Ollie.
This is Ali named Geoff. Geoff Lee, composer. We got handsome Geoff with the ring, with the
Smoldering, yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
Breaking my heart.
Hey Geoff, do you get asked if you're Russian ever? I wore a ring on my right ring finger for quite a while, and I got asked if I was Russian all the time because I guess Russian folks they wear their wedding ring on their right hand. I don't know. It just happens a lot to me. I don't know. Yeah, it's just a thing. Moving on. Okay, we got home, about, music, events, contact. This is a vertical page. Looks like it might be ish. Let's try clicking. About. No, it goes somewhere else. So home has like a taster of various things, looks like. What's this about right here? About, and then we have a different about page with a different picture. Is it the same thing? Or is this more about? More pictures too.
I actually don't think it's the same text.
No, it's different text, looks like.
In fact, the other one, the first one on the homepage at the end says click here, and it takes you to the other about. And you'll notice that if you do that, his smile downgrades considerably. So I think he prefers us to stay on the homepage one.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I didn't say it. Yeah, I agree, man. You look like you're less stoked. We're actually looking at your stuff now. If you can get someone,
we gave you what you wanted.
If you can get someone to click a link and get to the next page, like, you should be very happy, because it does not happen by default at all. I'm gonna go ahead and read this though. So, hi, I'm Geoff, and I'm a composer for concert and video games. Concert. So, are you gonna call it out again here, Austin? Concert games and video games. For concert and video games, based in Edmonton, Canada. That's where I'm from. What up,
Yeah,
man?
you could clean that up if you want to say I'm a concert and video, if you want to be very pedantic, a concert music and video games composer, or just a concert and video games composer.
Vince says there should be more concert games.
That I completely agree with.
All right. I have a great love for exploring different styles of music and all the ways you can use them to affect a listener and to create something new and unique. Music and video games are two of my biggest passions, and so I work with a variety of groups, though I tend to be busiest in the classical world, okay? I love working as part of a team to create the most immersive and memorable experiences possible, whether it's a project with musicians or developers. I've collaborated with professional chamber ensembles, big bands, music festivals, and in many a game jam. Sure. Currently, I'm working on a new multimedia electroacoustic piece for next year's Come On Festival, chamber music, old and new. For an official bio for concert programming, click here. I see. So this is like a casual hello, and we have about on the next page. I was confused by the fact that it says about at the top, and it says about on the main page too. So you may want to address that or something in some respect. So just real quick, Austin, I think I feel like this bio kind of, or this front casual bio, not the official bio, it suffers a bit from the thing we see occasionally where, like, this could be, at least some parts of this could be like anyone's bio. We get this a lot, like music and games. My biggest passions. It happens all the time. Like, I see that on every 5th bio we see. I just love seeing. I mean, I know your official bio probably has more things that are like specific to you. Went to McEwen University of Music. I went to the same program, man. I think it's the first time someone has been in the same program as I was in. That's crazy. I also have my bachelor's. You know what? I don't have my bachelor's, and here's why. So you took the exact same program I took, Geoff. If you were working with, like, oh geez, I don't know who's still there. Like, I think Alan Gilliland is higher up now. He wasn't my composer prof when I was there, but I got a diploma in music composition. And then the very next year, it was the exact same program, and they started handing out bachelors. So they just finally got their like accreditation or whatever it is. So, oh well, no bachelors for me. Rip.
I had no idea you were a charlatan.
Oh my God.
I'm canceling everything here.
No bachelors. No, cool, Geoff. Good stuff. That's very cool that you went to McEwen as well. Okay, so born in Daking, China, in '94 to Korean parents. Korean from China. Cool. All right. And various like this. I love seeing this McEwen stuff. Kent Sangster. Sure. Cool. Nice, man. All right. Very many Edmonton things. Yardbird Sweet. Sure. These are all things I know, man. This is very cool. Okay. Sure. I guess people want to know more about you and skip the stuff that applies to everyone. I guess they can go to your official bio, so maybe it's fine. I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Do you have any thoughts on the bio stuff, Austin?
Yeah. Just one. I see this periodically, and it's I think it's a phenomenon that has somehow kind of gotten culturally into those who do the kind of rigorous academic training with a path towards concert music, because there seems to be a bit of a correlation where, as part of the presentation of professionalism as that world interprets it, it translates as a little bit of a like, I don't want to say lack of enthusiasm for games, but it almost comes across that way, because it's kind of like, look, I like games, but let's be real. My focus is, being the next John Corigliano or whatever. And I know I'm over analyzing and kind of over extrapolating, but I just want you to hear it to see if it comes across that way. Cause like the explicitly saying I am busiest in the classical world makes it sound almost like games is a hobby. And then you sort of double down on that by referencing games the only other time as game jams.
Yeah.
And it makes it seem like this is not like, if I'm a prospective game employer, publisher, developer, whatever, and I see someone who's doing anything short of I live and breathe games, like I'll be thinking the last guy's website had a freaking Fmod demo. Like, you don't do that unless you've put the time to learn that shit.
Yeah.
And you don't learn that shit unless you're ready for battle. And so it's like I've already, started to put data points on the line that say, yeah, this guy, if his music blows my mind, then I will look past all of that. But if I haven't even made it to the music, or maybe I don't even pursue listening to the music because I caught this vibe of being like, yeah, games are cool, and if something comes up, I'll take a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I felt
wait a minute. Sorry, go ahead.
I felt a little bit strange, like seeing this is all one sentence with the parentheses. You say that video games and music are two of your biggest passions, and then you promptly say, but not that big of a passion. That's kind of...
Yeah, actually, I remember when you read that, I thought, what are the others? Like, I'm immediately intrigued by, if that's two among many or several, what are the other things? It's like music and games are two of my biggest passions, alongside, feeding penguins and like going bird watching.
Yeah, it's
which I guess is related to feeding penguins. But
yes, one comes after the other.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, I think that this kind of falls into, and this is full on just like, this is very just us coming in blind, Geoff, and just getting like some general feelings right away, right? This might fall into the category of when it might be valuable to have like two separate kind of branches to your page, like have like concert music here and like video games here. And then what that tends to do is it kind of it caters to your visitor to the website, right? You've got, if this right here, this very first thing we see is like boom and like two buttons, concert and like games, and I'm a video game recruiter or I am myself at Power Up, or I'm like whatever, is some person looking for a composer. Right away I'll be like, oh, I'm games, and I'll click that, and it'll be directly to things that are like directly relevant to me. And you could basically have like two copies of your page at that point. You have like the about, and you put all the stuff that a games person needs to know about you. And they don't really need to know as much about like specifics of this like chamber music ensemble thing you did at a certain time. It's going to be like way more relevant to them. And what it comes down to is like a consideration of their time. So if they have like 100 demo reels to look through on websites, and you're saying things like this, with the, tending to be busiest in the classical world, just right away, you're making them measure with that information up against the other 99 composers they have, and it's not going to be a positive data point for them. And of course, conversely, if you have folks who are in the concert world, they don't really care about the game stuff, right? I mean, assumably, or rather, at least the concert stuff's most relevant to their needs and their interests at that point. So you're going to be, best serving both those worlds. We see it again and again with like games and film, or like we had one guy that was on, it was years back, I can't recall his name. It was Hammer Audio or Hammer Music, something like that. And he had like photography on his webpage, and yeah, like very cool. His little like bird watching thing, right, Austin? Like very cool. You're in the penguins, but I don't know that that's like the best use of someone's attention. If they're on your site at all, you should be like grateful, and then like as fast as you can funnel their navigation to like the thing that you need them to see right now.
Yeah. I think if the bio is focusing on whatever your most sort of impressive achievements are, and you just present that kind of agnostically, like I won, even if that's has nothing to do with games. Like if your achievement is, I won this chamber music competition, like it, or it's, or I did this, I headlined this festival, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be an award either. Like sometimes, in fact, it's a pet peeve of mine to see people who kind of obsess over that stuff.
Awards pending.
Yeah, like the bio. It's just, I mean, I don't know. I go back and forth. I'm all over the place on it, but so I don't want to sound prescriptive there. I just think if you present, here's a very brief snapshot of me, and here's kind of like what I think is noteworthy, and then it branches into essentially, here is more detail for the people who are like, if I'm a conductor and I'm on the hunt for repertoire for my orchestra for the mythical future in which orchestras are performing in front of live audiences again, they will find that path immediately, and they will not have been put off by a love of games. It's exactly like what Geoff said, and then very, of course, crucially, the flip is also true. A game developer is not going to think this guy's basically a classical composer masquerading. Did I say Geoff?
Yeah, it's fine.
Kevin. So yeah, I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, I'm very.
It's just slight wording.
I'm very into like the psychology of how you present yourself. I mean, it really is like Geoff. It's so frequently the case that people's websites and demo reels. It's not that the person lacks the talent or like lacks the ability or the skill or the experience. It's more they just perhaps have not chosen the most direct path forward in terms of like communicating that information to that person who's taking the time out of their day to visit their site and view their materials.
Yeah, the worst case is actually obscuring. What the thing that would land the gig or land the meeting or whatever.
It's the exact same thing that you're saying previously, Austin, as far as like, if the best thing is 30 seconds, then for God's sake, skip 30 seconds. Speaking of the meat, I'm actually going to glance through the rest of the page really fast here before you listen to the stuff. We're talking a lot here, so I'll carry on. Music, we got all chamber solo, large ensemble, vocal arrangements, electroacoustic, sound art, and then games dead last. So it's the exact same thing, man. No need to get into that deeper than we are. But I want to click on games. Let's click on games. That's the relevant thing for us. We have games. Is it the same thing on the front page, or is it different? This is game music composer. Is it the same video? So you have games last. Hold up. Is this the same video? 138. We'll skip to like 47 seconds. This glance here.
Yeah. I'm seeing what you're seeing, and I think you're right.
And then music 138, 47 seconds. Holy! I can't believe that, man. So your games is dead last in music, but it's your first video on the front page. I feel like it just isn't clear in its message. That's all.
And for what it's worth, because I grappled with this, because I also write concert music, and so I grappled with how to present this for freaking ever, and I'll probably end up changing it again and again and again. But for what it's worth, if it's of any use to you, like the generally speaking, the people who are hiring for games are sifting through thousands more people than the people who are looking to commission concert composers. They're both highly competitive, and they both should have no path of resistance to the extent possible. But I for the tabs on my website, it's like, games and then concert music as two broad categories, and only under concert music would you find things like electroacoustic and blah blah blah. Because that's a familiar dance. But by ranking them all, because they're not the same thing, they're completely different mediums from one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the organization should be the medium level. Like, instead of home about music events contact, it should be like home about game music or games or whatever, and then concert music, and then events, etc. That's how I've done mine, and that for I could take this back some other day, but that's how I've arranged my site, and it feels like it makes it easier for people to find what they're looking for. To me, as my 2 cents.
Geoff, did you send this arrangement to me at some point, or to Power Up at some point in the past? Your arrangement of Lena Rain's First Steps from Celeste? That seems very familiar, and I can't recall. I really feel like you sent that to us and said, hey, look at this thing. Pretty cool, right? Sent to Lena. Okay, so perhaps I saw it through her then, like on the XOK. Well, I mean, before that, the Mamix Games Slack channel. Very possible. Cool, I think I heard that. Good job. Let's go to... it's now 5:21, Austin. We're talking way too much. Let's go over to that main video. We'll scroll down from his handsome face and go to Geoff Lee Composer. I'll crank it up on my mixer and go full screen. And let's watch this thing in 3, 2, 1, and... Oof. Okay, all right. Cheering, replaying, pausing. Okay. Austin.
So solid work. Very, very good stuff. The little stingers at the beginning, and I'm slightly mixed on, though they're kind of funny. The little sort of celeste thing at the very, very head of this made it seem like Geoff Lee, like in this very kind of mysterious, questioning way, which
Who is
makes
he?
me
Who
laugh.
is he? Who is
Yeah, exactly. It's like people have been asking for years, and now we have the answer. So it is a fascinating, sort of stealing slightly, not Geoff's comment from a second ago, about the psychology of your presentation, and sort of what you're anticipating was informing us. Like, after having really made me think everything about you from a concert music, acoustic, I was expecting orchestral or chamber kind of music. So it's fascinating, and I don't really know which direction good, bad, whatever, that you started with something that is as opposite as anything I would associate with most concert music as possible. That's probably a good thing, because it's like, I am not defined entirely by string quartets and choirs and orchestras and that sort of thing. Although I see Vince's comment, I had the same thought. I kept waiting for the banner to disappear.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So one thing I always say on Real Talk is I prefer when people leave up their lower thirds with the info. But of course, it's as a guideline, not necessarily a rule. And I think this is one of the rare examples where I do want to see what's behind this thing. And I always say on stream, I'm sorry, Geoff, if you've watched it and like are following my advice. I always say like, no one will care if they can't see what's behind the thing. But in this case, I do want to see it, because it's like directly relevant to what you're writing.
It's a music
maybe like
visualizer.
I don't know, like maybe here, or I don't know what, in the middle. I don't know where you can put it. Just maybe not right specifically there. Anyway. Okay.
Yeah, and I would add that I liked about 2/3 of the way through when suddenly on-screen text started to offer some like additional information. Like when you had the thing about a stinger will play when the NPC sees you, and that made me retroactively go, what the hell was going on during Dance Decryptor? Because I would love to know, is this purely a visualizer? Is this just effectively Guitar Hero reskinned? Like, is there something unique about this that I'm missing? If you're already going that far later, why not do it throughout?
Yeah, it's I usually don't like when people will put text that's like describing things in the video, because it ends up, or it can, the risk being that folks who are watching are then distracted from your awesome tunes or your sound design and are instead like just reading this wall of text instead. This wasn't too much. You could probably pare it down a bit more yet. Like, you know, how music change upon enemy aggro or something like that. And that's enough information. We don't need to know like what it switches to. We can listen to it. Like I can hear it changes to a higher energy track. You're kind of just being a little bit redundant at that point. But yeah, I'm curious. I heard it happen and I was like, oh, was that dynamic? And then you're like, yes, it was. So I appreciate that clarification. That was good. Okay, so in terms of presentation stuff, were you at all losing interest over the course of the 138, Austin?
Losing interest? I don't think so. I do think from a presentation standpoint, if we can extrapolate from that into polish, like the polish of presentation, I get that the elephant in the room is a game jam title. I can sort of tweak my expectations accordingly.
Yep.
But I would recut this footage. Like I felt like an hour of this video was watching this character stuck in what looks like a bathtub. And I get it was actually 5 seconds, but I just thought this could be much more snappily presented, because the music is being dragged down by the kind of humdrum visuals, even with the tweaked expectation of, it's a game jam. Obviously, it's not going to be, a 2 years worth of polish.
So here's my position on that one. So I personally, again, we can't say enough. This is only the opinion of two people. It's just Austin and myself, right? But for me personally, I do like seeing game jams in demo reels occasionally, because it's showing that you're out there in the industry, in the community, you're making friends, you're showing that you're like, you can hit deadlines, because game jams, I mean, that's all they are, is one big deadline, very prompt deadline. And that it reflects very positively on you, because you're claiming that games are your passion, and there's no reason to involve yourself in a game jam unless you want to do it. So that's great. However, everything Austin's saying rings very true. You're under game jam circumstances. In the case of, I can't recall the name of this thing, Elephant in the Room, it's like samples, but I don't mind because it's a game jam. I'm like, that makes sense, sure. But then it leaves me thinking like, well, what does your stuff sound like when you're not faced with only 24 hours to do a demo track or another game jam track or another game jam track? Like it's all very much like, here's how I operate under very tight deadlines. But what happens if you have a month, Geoff? I want to hear like what your hottest stuff is when you have the time to do it. And this doesn't show it at all. You know, it's showing some indication of your passion, but not what like the full extent of your talent can look like if you're given ample time to deal with it. That's how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, I everything in there rang true, and I think it's a very fair kind of counterpoint that having Game Jam in there as a sort of symbol that you are out there participating, meeting people, doing stuff, and being a citizen of games.
Yeah,
that's a great sign. I probably overlooked that. And it's not that I hated that it was there. I just wish the footage lent it. I wish the footage was not dragging the music into feeling kind of tedious.
Sure.
Because it's not. If I closed my eyes, I would have a very different sense of the pacing.
Yeah. In general. Just from my personal experience, just watching some 200 reels on stream, in general, the Game Jam stuff reflects the best when it's like peppered or just sort of like just dropped at the end, like, oh, and by the way, this is a cool thing, pretty cool, right? Like just a little bit something there to say yes, everything I was saying previously, just to convey that information. But I honestly, Geoff, I think this might be the first time I've ever seen a reel that was only Game Jam content. I don't think I've ever seen a reel that was only Game Jam content. So I guess take from that what you will. It certainly tells me that it's at least unconventional. And I want to see just more of what you're capable of. That's all.
Well, I think the implication there would be those are the opportunities thus far, right? Like,
sure.
No paid game projects. Yeah, there's no shame in that.
It comes back to the thing you were saying, Austin. Like, do you to rescore or not to rescore? You know.
Yeah, I mean, truth for me, I would so much rather see these where Geoff, got with people and they made a thing, even if it's unpolished and it's, like there's all manner of sort of caveats you would give about it. I'm more interested in that because it's something real than here's me writing essentially a the composer equivalent of fan art over existing gameplay footage. Like if you had to choose between the two, to me it speaks vastly more excitedly about you that you did real game jams, especially because obviously anybody hip to game jams understands that these things were done quickly. And to that point, the other comment I wanted to add is in direct contrast to that, the Victory fanfare thing saying demo track composed within 24 hours, saying that goes, to me, it says, look, this is not good, but there's a reason. It's done really fast. It's like you're making excuses. And it makes me listen to it differently. It makes me go, I really shouldn't expect much. You've actually done the opposite of what I think you're trying to do, which is go, look at what I pulled off in a crazy amount of time. Like if you really want to be patted on the back for that and that's important to you, so be it. But I would put it as like a tag, like at the end, like, by the way, that was done in 24 hours or something like that. But if you want to know the fullest extent of my thoughts, I would probably just leave that off. I would just don't give someone extra kind of context to fill in the gaps in ways you can't control.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at this one here, like this often happens too, like written as an application demo for an indie Metroidvania looking for 80s synth chiptune and Metroid Prime in 2020. Like, did you get the job? There's like a psychology thing here. Like, if you didn't get the job and they didn't hire you, then I had this like immediate thought, like, well, then why should I hire you if they didn't hire you? Like, is this not good enough? And that's of course just again a psychology thing, and it could be sweet. But if I didn't even know this, then I wouldn't have any like preconceived lens through which to consume your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that, like, if you're worried about the follow-up question of them going, hey, what's this for? And you're like, oh, well, like if you say written based on a what do you have it? Metroidvania looking for 80 cents. Like if you leave off the word demo or application demo and you say written for,
with like in mind.
Or yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was trying to think of the right phrasing, but yeah, in the spirit of or inspired by an indie Metroidvania looking. And if you're worried that might lead to the follow up of, so what happened with that? And you're like, oh, it was a demo and I didn't get the job. then just don't say any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's just not really.
I mean, my agent has a big thing about this. We even disagree sometimes because I like putting in little bits of context, but my agent will often say, let the music do all the talking. Don't say one word. And I think that that's probably a little too far than I tend to go, but it is an opinion that is worth thinking about.
So here, in the spirit of, I know we're a little over time here, but I just like talking to you so much, Austin. Let's go.
It's like looking at your beard.
Let's have a
prettier
look
than mine.
at title theme for an imaginary JRPG. How about that? This, I know we often say like top left will be clicked first. It probably would be usually, but the title theme is drawing my eye because you mentioned something earlier. I love how you phrased it as far as writing music that is fully committed to itself. And when I see title theme, I feel like, well, it better be that at least. That it should know what it is and do it with some strength. And just, commitment. It's a good word. So do you want to listen to this one?
Yeah, I will say one last thing.
Please.
Because funny enough, I actually lately, just for fun, I actually cut together a reel, exactly like these, like a kind of review, video. And the thing I obsessed over the most was the transitions between segments. And to me, just sort of seemingly arbitrarily crossfading in the middle of a phrase or in the kind of an odd place within a meter, the bar, that kind of thing. Most people probably wouldn't notice or care. For what it's worth, I care, and I noticed, and you had 4 or 5 successive nice, well presented pieces, but they all kind of weirdly shifted at awkward moments. And so I recognize this is a nitpick. Don't lose any sleep over it, but it is well, okay. You've looked at more reels than I have.
Yes,
so
certainly. There is, I bring up Aaron Bauer's AaronBauersAudio.com a lot, and he submitted maybe in January, I think, and I simply won't forget his reel. His reel was fine, and he knows I think it's fine. Like, it didn't blow me away. The content in it was fine. It wasn't his strongest stuff, but the thing is, it was cut so well. Like, there was a clip, many people in the chat have seen this thing, but just for your information, Austin, there's like a clip from Soma where the dude's like climbing a ladder, and then it crossfades at the top of a ladder from BioShock. So it's like he's climbing like from one game into the next, and it just goes directly into like a different sound redesign. And I was like, man, that was so mindful, and just speaks volumes of his attention to like storytelling and to detail. And it just, from a distinction standpoint, like, I'm never going to forget that reel, even though it was just fine. But what that says to me is that, like, if Aaron were to apply to Power Up in, like, if we put a job posting up in a year or something, just hypothetically, and I saw Aaron's name appear, I'd be like, oh, sweet, I already have this, like, this understanding of Aaron's,
+1.
Yeah, like the +1 to his character and like these various checkboxes that I hold dear personally. And now it's a matter of, like, has he improved in like the craft, right? So Aaron, if you're watching, thank you for letting me just guinea pig you all the time, man. I think your stuff's awesome from a variety of angles, and I can't wait to see more of your stuff, basically.
You really do highlight, though, the psychology of, you can be someone who's not the best at a thing, but present yourself so convincingly that you will get the job anyway.
Yeah.
Or
like just eventually.
That sounds kind of cynical, but it's because it's not like a con artist, sort of a snake oil salesman thing. It's just like, I really knew how to present this. And that's a great story, actually, of, like, not being blown away by the content, but by the presentation. Okay, let's title theme. Let's do that. And also, Lord Thayer says he liked the fanfare. Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn to like 5% volume. Let's go back up to the top. And 3, 2, 1, go.
We looping? I think we're looping now. Cool, man. Thanks.
Oh, what? It doesn't have an ending?
It's a loop, man. It's fading out. It's games.
Oh man, no! I so reject that premise. By the way, but
I know. I think you put endings on your soundtrack releases, right?
Yeah, the pieces end. I don't. It doesn't matter if the end is, well, separate discussion, I guess. But it's such a pet peeve of mine when you're listening to like a Beatles song and they just fade out, and I'm like, I know they stop playing at some point. Like there is an actual end. I've heard a lot of defense of the fade out, but it's one of those. It's like a pet peeve of mine. But that's Ignore me on that. This absolutely was committed to itself.
Mm-hmm.
This you could almost, if I had to choose between what I just heard and the video we watched, I'd go with this in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only is this committed in an unapologetic way to without feeling directly sort of referential to some specific JRPG. Like it doesn't feel like you're kind of flying too close to the sun with any specific game. Like in other words, this doesn't feel plagiaristic to me, but it has nonetheless very correctly, I guess you could say, absorbed the various tropes and gestures that make up the sort of the high marks of that genre.
Mm-hmm.
The classic JRPG kind of isms musically, and feels like you really understand that and you can speak that language very fluently, and it's just so much. It's so conceived, and it's nice. I loved the little kind of harp, big nasty crescendo into this much more delicate moment.
Mm-hmm.
And with some nice, very juicy, very typically JRPG harmonies, and so yeah, I it's like if you headlined your site with this, it would be, I think, more convincing potentially for me than the game jam pieces that have all those caveats and all the kind of stuff we already talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do want to bring up one thing. I won't speak to the musicality too much, so that's certainly Austin's side of things more than it is mine. But I do want to mention from the main demo, I saw, I think it was Vince in the chat or somebody else said there was a lot of highs, and I do think that's something I would focus on next, Geoff. Like the next thing you should do is that. And what I'm talking about is that it came through a little bit in this track, but not egregiously. But in the original video, I'm gonna pull this right back up. You may, if you're watching me while you're watching your reel, you may have seen me wincing a bit. And I have these headphones on at a normal listening level. I didn't change the sensibility stuff, and I was like, ooh, oh, and it was stabbing my ears a little bit in the highs. So I'm gonna crank it, like right off the top. Oh man, it's pretty.
Yeah, the chill-S is pretty brutal.
Yeah, pretty hot in the highs. And literally, I had to look. I glanced over at. I have like my audio system goes through Pro Tools on my Mac side. You're watching my PC right now, but it's going into my Mac. So I'm looking at my Mac as far as the input, being like, do I have something turned on? I shouldn't, like a limiter or something, and I did not. It just was your stuff. So be very, very careful with your highs, because the thing about humans is our ears transduce the highs into our brain very efficiently, and if you're not careful, they can be like the science to it can get out of hand, and it can get really piercing really fast. So it happened there. It happened later on as well. It happened at the very end too. The very end little hit.
Yeah, the little.
It's just like, oh man, and it almost felt like you were just like flicking my forehead a little bit. So yeah, be very, very careful of that. And it could be as simple as like throwing a shelf EQ and just dropping your highs down by like 6 dB, and it'll probably just be an improvement immediately. Just be aware that humans are, their ears, we take in highs very efficiently. So even more so if you're doing like a mobile game, you gotta be even more careful of that, because mobile speakers reproduce highs very efficiently. So it's like this compounding problem. Okay, just be aware of that. I didn't want to let that slide before, or have that missed as far as this. I think it's my biggest concern in your entire reel was that. Okay. Okay, so do you have any final thoughts on Geoff's stuff? We're like way over time right now. It's okay though, Austin. Any final thoughts?
Well, I don't mind if you don't mind, and if they don't mind, I'm happy to have weighed in.
Okay, awesome.
But the only other thing obviously would, a production standpoint, you are always going to be inevitably going up against folks that have either fully live orchestras or partially live orchestras or whatever. And so, anything and everything that you can possibly do to flesh that out more, some of it's pretty sampley. And it would be good to try and even just a single violin doubling your firsts, that you buy a beer for a friend in exchange for them tracking, is it can go a long way. I'm very sympathetic to the fact that those opportunities are somewhat few and far between, and working with musicians and orchestras and all that is definitely kind of a stepping stone process, and I don't want to brush past that unsympathetically. But you will be up against people who have that.
The thing is, Austin, is Vince raises a wonderful point. We hadn't really visited his other pages yet. Perhaps you did on your side, Austin. But I went to, for example, Music Chamber Solo, I think it was called. Yeah, Chamber Solo. Yeah. And just in each one, it's like string quartet. We have all the musicians right here. Piano, Sarah Ho. We have all these people. And then, so you have access to these musicians in some respect, buy that beer, and then, get your game stuff recorded and sent in sick also, even that single
because the thing is, especially right now where all these orchestra gigs and chamber gigs have been canceled, there are so many musicians that are rapidly learning how to record from home because they realize, holy crap, that's the only sort of pandemic proof source of income for me. And there's a bunch that already do it and have for years, but you will never find a more eager to work and to parlay favors and to just use their instrument crowd of musicians than in this moment in time. And it's like, to me, and the other thing is, I also get it represents an investment, even if it's just a matter of paying money to a musician to say, can you help me sort of sweeten this track. I get that, it costs money in most cases. But then I also swing back to the idea that, do you want to stand out? Like, do you want to have a fighting chance? Like, invest in yourself. You are an investor doing a Series A on Geoff Lee Inc. So take that risk. I say, do what you can within your means. Of course, I'm not saying be reckless, but as someone who has repeatedly, ridden my bank accounts to the edge of the cliff in the interest of making it just that much better and that much nicer sounding, those things do pay dividends in the end because that you have fewer and fewer kind of apologies about what you're sending out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the sound design side of things, one common thing we say all the time is if you don't have access to top tier voice talent, don't put voiceover in your demo reel because it's always not good enough. Like it's like nothing is better than bad every time. But the thing is, we've seen like 2 or 3, maybe only 2 demo reels where the voiceover is clearly hired. Like it definitely isn't the person who was showing their stuff off. And I'm like, damn, man, like this sounds sweet right now, and it's not from the original game you're redesigning right now. And it clearly is someone you like hired on from voices123.com or whatever. And that again, it just shows that you're serious. And again, it's one of those checkboxes. It's like less risk. They're serious. Less risk. So okay, I'm keen to wrap up my thoughts right there. I guess the final thing here would be: do you think that in terms of a job application in games or a hiring for games scenario, do you think that Geoff Lee is standing out as a composer?
I think if Geoff finds his interpretation of our feedback, particularly like that bio right out of the gate was such a kind of tailspin for me that if the site was just verbatim as is out of the gate, I'd have serious concerns about how serious he looks. As we dug in more, I think it's quite clear he is serious. So it's a matter of don't make it so hard for us to figure that out. Don't require an hour of digestion on a Twitch channel to see your true intent and your true sort of talent and what you have to offer. So the goods are there. I think it's like cleaning up the presentation of it and the messaging of it.
Excellent. I feel the same. So, Geoff, I know we kind of had a lot to talk about there. So, and of course, Billy as well. If you have anything else to talk about after the fact, like clarification, or if you have any more thoughts and more questions, feel free to hit me up. My info down below, either Power Up or RegMK. Either one will get to me. And I'm not sure, Austin, I don't want to volunteer that for you, but
no, of course, no, absolutely, no. I see my Twitter's on there, and I've been, just forewarning, I've been basically completely off social media for a few days, and so it's not like I closed the account, but I haven't really been checking. But do feel free to reach out if there's something that is of specific use, or my website's just myname.com. My email's on there, and I'm easy to find. That for sure I am checking. So you may volunteer me all you like on this or any other of these, because I really value, one of the things that when I first moved to LA, I didn't know a single person. I had done a couple of NYU student films, but that was it. I knew no one, and a few composers, two guys in particular, Nathan Barr and Jim Dooley, who are both very established composers today, especially, but back then, even then, they made me feel very, very welcome. When it was like, come down to my studio, take you to lunch. And I was no one. I was like a 19-year-old or 20-year-old who had no claim on anything. And it made such a profound impression on me at how much easier it made this leap of throwing myself into the industry, that I've kind of been obsessed with making sure to treat that like a torch that must be continually passed. And so anyone on the chat, frankly, who wants to reach out, I sometimes take a little while to get back to folks just because I'm busy with stuff, but I will never just ignore someone. Occasionally by mistake, I'll lose an email, but do not hesitate to reach out, because, we are a community, to me, that what defines a community in part is some amount of solidarity. Like, what Kevin does with this is amazing. Like this is the only purpose of this, is to help make current and future colleagues better. And I feel privileged to be part of that process. Obviously, I'm a very small part of it here. This is all you, Kevin. But yeah, anyone can reach out, because we're all better the better we all are. You know what I mean? So let's do that.
Thanks, Austin. I mean, I appreciate the kind words. It's certainly, we are thankfully in a position where we don't need to be hustling quite so hard for work these days, given that, like yourself, we've kind of we have laurels to rest upon, although we don't aim to rest upon them. They do exist, and my Nathan Barr and I forget the second person's name. Something
Jim Dooley.
Yeah. Thank you. Mine was Adam Gubman. Who
we love Adam.
Who said, "Hey, I got a pull-out couch in my GDC hotel room to stay with me. Also, here are these party invites. Come on in." Like, it was just crazy. So
Adam is a very, very good guy.
Yeah, Adam's a solid dude, definitely. And just pass that torch along. Exactly. I like how you phrased that. So, and of course, this is also why you mentioned like emails getting lost, or like just not being able to get to things because you're busy. Like, we specifically schedule this time slot so that we do the mentorship, because otherwise, if I get emails and stuff, it's like, okay, I'll totally do it. And then like a month passes, I'm like, oh shit, I still haven't done that thing. It's just far too easy to backburner things when you're just getting, when deadlines are looming. So again, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the stream today, Austin. I know 2 hours is the easiest thing to find. So thanks so much.
No, but it's an important thing to do. I feel very privileged to have been asked. I will happily come back anytime you wish. And I hope it was useful.
I will give you one of these. Just some claps for Austin in the chat, please. Thanks, buddy.
One of what?
You can't hear it. Some applause. The applause.
Oh, yeah, you got all muffled.
The classic Plaza soundboarding, you know. Anyways, so thank you again, and I guess if you have anything further, like as far as like personal projects or stuff that you want to point people in the direction of, the floor is yours.
No, I mean today's not about me. I'm happy to share. I'm happy to my social media when I eventually do come back to it. It probably just taken the week. It just it was exhausting, and I had things to do, and I said I've reached a crossroad where I have to kind of decide: am I going to be worried about the world, or am I going to have to just out of self-preservation bunker down a little and seal myself off? And maybe that's selfish, and maybe that's privileged. It's probably both of those things. I acknowledge that, but if I didn't do it, I might have lost my mind. And so I gave myself that permission. I will eventually come back, and then I will share all the things at that point, I guess.
Perfect. Yeah. A couple more years. Okay, well, thanks so much, man. And I guess the very last thing is that if anybody's in the chat and wants to submit, I feel like I did miss somebody. I meant to get back to them and say, here's how you submit. But if you do want to submit your stuff to Real Talk, you can just do it down below at ReggaeMK or at powerup.audio.com, our website, or at PowerUpAudio on Twitter. Any of them will make it to us, and we'll slot you in. We just need to basically get your links, and we'll say, oh, here's when you have a time slot. Come on over. I guess, Jack, if you are watching this on VOD, we will get to you eventually for sure. And otherwise, I guess guest hosts coming up. Last thing, we've got, oh man, who is next? We've got Steven Shapler, who is the, I think, senior sound designer right now he was on Mortal Kombat 11 and Injustice 2 and Mortal Kombat X. And then after that, we've got Urchan from Tail World, so in the Mountain Blade series. After that, we have M. Halberstadt, who is sound designer at A Shell in the Pit here in Vancouver with Gordon McGladdery and friends. And she did Night in the Woods and Untitled Goose Game. And she's doing Chicory, A Colorful Tale now with Greg Labanov and friends. And after that, we have...
And Lena.
And Lena as well. Thank you, Lena Wren. And after that, the next person is Rob Krekel, who is audio lead at Naughty Dog. So we have some really good guest hosts coming up. So I'm looking forward to this again. I'm so happy that people like Austin are making the time to join me, because it's much better for everyone rather than just having my damn echo chamber of my dummy opinions over and over again. So thanks, buddy. Okay, I'll let you go, Austin. Thanks again for everything, man.
It's my pleasure. We'll see you next time.
All right, later, buddy.
Take care.
Okay, and I'm going to put some John Wick Hex back on also, because, I mean, why not? There you go. Perfect. There it is. Okay. We're well over time. I mean, and I love talking to Austin. It's inescapable. Oh, well. So I'm going to call it right there. Again, anyone submitting, feel free to do so below. Geoff and Billy, feel free to follow up. And everyone else, I guess I'll see you next week, all right? Thanks a lot.